As per World Health Organization, 35% of women worldwide experience some kind of violence in their lifetime. Unfortunately, less than 60% of these cases ever get reported. But thankfully, we have available to us organizations like CHETNA that help combat violence by spreading awareness and empowering women. And today, as part of their awareness campaign, we'll be having a conversation with their keynote speaker, the pioneer of the MeToo movement in India, the victim turned survivor, Tanushree Dutta. Hi Tanushree, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good, Swati. How are you?
Good, thank you. So Tanushree, I will take your memory 10 years back when you were yourself a victim of workplace harassment. So back then you did speak up, but somehow your words weren't taken that seriously and it did not make that big an impact. But 10 years after, it revolutionized the MeToo movement in India. So what do you think was different in the world then and now? What changed?
Well, I definitely think the major contributing factor was the MeToo movement in the US that had created a lot of awareness, even in India. I think world over, women who were educated had followed the hashtag MeToo movement when it happened in the US, especially in Hollywood. So because of that awareness and a desire to have something like that happen in India, I think when they were reminded of this incident that happened 10 years ago, a lot of people came forward in support. So even 10 years ago, a lot was spoken about it, a lot was written about it in the press. There was a lot of interviews that happened. We failed to get the traction it needed to create any kind of change was because of the lack of support, and also there was no desire to have such a movement in India. This time there was a desire. The media wanted to have a movement like that. The people wanted to have a movement like that. The women wanted to have their voices heard. And I think they were somewhere just waiting for someone to take the lead. And here I was back in India after for a holiday. I had been in the US for 2 years. I had to be here to get my green card. Everyone told me, "Oh, don't go back till you get your green card."
Right time,
till you get your green card, So I said, okay. I missed my sister's wedding because of that. As soon as I got my green card, I was like, I'm going to India, And so I just went to spend time with my family and all of that. And somebody just asked me a question, that, why do you think the MeToo movement has not happened in India? And I was like, excuse me?
That happened 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
In my mind.
Yeah. I was like, so I jogged them down memory lane. That's all I did. And after that, the whole thing, just exploded from there. And I was amazed. I was really, really amazed because I still find it difficult to take credit for it. Because I knew it was not just me. I knew it was the support of all these different women who took the courageous step to come forward and speak. Also, powerful media houses that were backing me, backing these women. A couple of politicians came forward. The police force came forward. And I was like, whoa, what's going on?
Everything lined up beautifully.
Everything lined up, We actually had, a lot of these women who were speaking up were being threatened by court cases, defamation cases. So it was a very, very vicious situation. Those 6 months were it's almost like you were on the battlefield. And now I was in it. I was leading. Somehow I become the leader, and I had to lead, and I couldn't look back and I couldn't stop because there were so many people dependent on me. And I found myself in that situation, and so I had to keep up with it, and I also had to do whatever I could to keep it alive till we got more support, till the laws
became more formalized.
Formalized until things were changing, and there were women who were getting threatened with court cases. And I remember I was talking to a journalist friend of mine, and I said, we have to do something about it. Not all of these women are privileged enough to hire expensive lawyers. Not all of them had also a situation where top-notch lawyers were approaching them to handle their cases over how do we help them. They can be dragged into court for speaking about something that happened to them.
Yes.
So me and this friend of mine, we were like, let's do one thing. We will take the list out of Twitter, because Twitter had these lists of lawyers and advocates who had offered their services for free. And we were like, why don't we just post it on TV, on national TV? So, and she was like, and she was one of my comrades, she was part of a very big media conglomerate, a complete supporter of women's empowerment and a complete supporter. She was also actually, these are the unknown names of the MeToo movement in India. You know, I'm the known face, these were the unknown face, you know, who behind the scenes they were the pushing it. So she posted the entire lawyer list on TV. So everybody who gets threatened with a lawsuit because of speaking up now has a free lawyer. You know,
That's amazing.
Free advocate and lawyer to defend them.
So Tanushree, do you think there are particular demographics or professions that are more prone to these kind of crimes?
No, I don't think so. I don't think there's any way to segregate victims. I don't even like calling them victims, survivors, but yeah, people who have endured any kind of harassment or any kind of violence, whether it's domestic or outside at work. I don't think there's any way to segregate the people and say that, hey, these group of people are more prone to it. It is just a clear case of being at the wrong place at the wrong time. You can't even segregate them by intelligence level, that hey, you shouldn't have taken up that project. But sometimes we all make blunders. We all end up marrying the wrong person. I mean, not we all, like we all are capable. We all are capable of ending up with the wrong person, marrying the wrong person. Sometimes your marriage is arranged, sometimes you've arranged it for yourself and it turns out to be a mistake. Sometimes you take a project or a work situation which turns out to be wrong because you end up working with the wrong people. They don't appreciate you. They hurt you. They maybe are, if not any kind of harassment, sometimes you simply are in a place where you don't feel appreciated. You feel shortchanged. That's also one kind of victimhood, when you are not given the opportunity to rise and grow. And it can just happen to anyone, So first thing is to come out of self-blame. Most people ruin it for themselves and the opportunity of fixing things in the future by getting into this guilt trip. Oh, I must have, done something wrong
to be in the situation.
Yeah. So I always tell people, shit happens. You have to deal with it, and you have to effectively deal with it. And I know it's very hard to deal with it, because sometimes when that shit affects your brain and your mind and your psychology, emotion, is very hard. But it has to be dealt with in the best possible way, and you have to move past it. Move past into a future that's better than the past. That has to be the goal. Move past into a future that is going to be better than what you have endured and gone. And that is possible. That graph, all of us are possible are capable of moving through that graph.
So Tanushree, last question very quickly. So we all know that these incidents happen, and unfortunately most of these are brushed under the carpet, either because of fear or because of ignorance. So can you tell our viewers a little bit about what all resources they have available, so that when they come in a situation like this, they do not hesitate, they reach out?
So today's conference was about domestic abuse, and my personal story has been about workplace harassment. And on the podium I tried to equate the two, although there is no similarity between the two, because domestic violence usually happens in a marriage situation with in-laws and with your partner, and workplace harassment is a non-intimate situation where you're maybe facing harassment for someone you barely even know, or maybe you know them a little bit at work. But the commonality that threads them together is the fact that there is another human being that has overstepped their boundaries and has chosen to hurt you in some way, bother you in some way, and bother you in ways that leaves deep scars. So there are many resources available. There are organizations that are working to help people. There are advocates and people, individuals. For example, during the MeToo movement in India, another very peculiar thing, and that's what made it so beautiful, was we also had a list of psychiatrists on Twitter that had offered their services for free, because it's very, very important to kind of bring yourself out psychologically. Yeah, so these are the resources that one must nobody comes out of a difficult situation unscratched, unscathed. It always leaves some kind of impact, so that impact has to be washed out. And then you have, of course, organizations that help you, and you can find out resources in your local area.
Well, Tanushree, it was great talking to you, and thank you so much for coming here tonight and making us aware about domestic violence, harassment, and how to deal with it. Thank you so much, Tanushree.
Well, I would like to thank CHETNA for giving me this opportunity. It's an organization, CHETNA is an organization that operates in the local Dallas area, and they work towards they work with the victims of domestic violence.
So we're just here talking to Tanushree Dutta, and if you guys out there are a victim of domestic violence or are feeling vulnerable, do not hesitate in calling CHETNA's confidential helpline. The details are given below. Once again, our sincere thanks to CHETNA for being out there, for being there to empower women and helping us create safer homes. This is Swati Goyal from Toppickmedia signing.